I thought that was a final.
It's the beginning of the year, the budget's still good, I got to pay. There you go.
Or the regular town council meeting, Monday, February 6th, 7 p.m. Roll call.
Ron, Langen,
Yes.
Candy Davis,
Yes.
Shaw,
Yes.
Paul Davis,
Yes.
Burdick,
Yes. Ron is excused tonight. Next item is pledge of allegiance.
Allegiance to the flag of the United States of America, and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Application of appropriate meeting notice.
Meeting notices were posted on Friday, February 3rd at the City Hall, the Post Office, the library, and the website.
Thank you. Council acceptance of agenda.
Make a motion to approve the agenda. Second.
Motion second. Any discussion? Hearing none. All those in favor, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried. Person appearances for non-agenda items. Anyone in the audience that wishes to speak on anything that's not on the agenda? Okay, we'll move on to the minutes from January 16th.
I'll move we accept the minutes.
I'll second. Motion to approve the minutes. Any corrections or additions? All in favor, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried. Finance committee, Andy.
Finance met this evening at 6:30. Motion to approve paying the Edgerton Fire Protection District payment for salary disparity in the amount of $10,993 with the condition of on the outcome of the audited financial statements. If the statements decrease the district shortfall, the district would reimburse the city. But we are recommending approval to pay today the $10,993.
And I'll second.
Motion second to pay the invoice from the Edgerton Fire Protection District. Any discussion? Hearing none, roll call.
Candy Davis,
Yes.
Shaw,
Yes.
Paul Davis,
Yes.
Burdick,
Yes.
Langen,
Yes.
Motion passes.
Motion to approve bills and payroll in the amount of $252,404.02.
I'll second.
Motion second to pay the bills. Any questions on bills?
Quick question, I know that I heard earlier on page 17 about picnic tables and it says for all over. Any idea, is any of that, Howard's not here, benches also? I know we had a couple of benches that needed. Is it just picnic
No,
tables?
I think this is materials for in the winter time, they know they rebuild refurb picnic tables, so I don't think that this is any benches.
Nothing with the benches.
But there are, did we have some in the budget this year? I don't recall.
I thought we did, but I mean, I couldn't swear to it, so, because we looked at a couple that needed them.
Yes.
Like King Mountain, some of the other, yeah, okay,
I'll make a note to mention it to Howard, but I believe this is just for materials.
Just the tables? Okay. Thank you.
Anyone else? Roll call.
Andy Davis,
Yes.
Shaw,
Yes.
Paul Davis,
Yes.
Burdick,
Yes.
Langen,
Yes. Motion passes.
Motion to approve amendment to City of Edgerton Resolution 01-23A 2023 salary resolution, which takes into account the Assistant Aquatic Director position at $20 per hour and forestry intern wage. That's in this one too.
It's actually not on the resolution.
It's not because
that's
it's
a
that, it's for,
internal
okay.
position. Yeah.
I'll take care of that at personnel update. So it includes the assistant aquatic director position.
I'll second.
Motion second to amend the City of Edgerton salary resolution. Any discussion?
So this is a new position that personnel committee, when we met on February 1st, which will help Ann out at the pool and is a good succession planning for her. And it'll help reduce her hours. Some of the payment for this position will be decreasing, hopefully decreasing Ann's hours
And not just herself.
and her salary.
Anyone else? Roll call.
Andy Davis,
Yes.
Shaw,
Yes.
Paul Davis,
Yes.
Burdick,
Yes.
Langen,
Yes. Motion passes.
Motion to approve City of Edgerton Resolution 03-23, approving the assigned fund balance for the year ending December 31st, 2022.
Second.
Motion second to approve Edgerton resolution 03-23. Any discussion? Hearing none, roll call.
Andy Davis,
Yes.
Shaw,
Yes.
Paul Davis,
Yes.
Burdick,
Yes.
Langen,
Yes. Motion passes.
Motion to approve City of Edgerton Resolution 04-23, approving budget transfers and amendments for the year ending December 31st, 2022.
I'll second.
Second to approve resolution 04-23. Any discussion? Hearing none, roll call.
Andy Davis,
Yes.
Shaw,
Yes.
Paul Davis,
Yes.
Burdick,
Yes.
Langen,
Yes. Motion passes.
Motion to approve loan subordination for Reinhardt Taxidermy.
I'll second.
Second to approve the loan subordination for Reinhardt. Any discussion?
I just, quick, for information purposes only, just out of curiosity, when was the original 160,000 taken out by?
Oh, yeah, my brain does not work like that. It's probably 4 or 5 years ago would be my guess, but it may be a lot longer, but I'd be happy to get the schedule after the meeting.
Would you?
Absolutely. I know exactly where it is, I just don't know when it
I
started.
was just curious, I was wondering how long, it's not 10, 20 years or something, right? Just,
No.
okay.
The addition of
It was probably just before, how long have you been in council?
I think
I
was. Oh.
you ask him, he knows, I don't know his names at all.
Fine. All right, thank you.
It seems like yesterday.
That I got on or? That's not first for you to say that.
Speak for yourself. I remember exactly when you got
I too.
Okay.
Moving on. Moving on.
Hearing none, roll call.
Andy Davis,
Yes.
Shaw,
Yes.
Paul Davis,
Yes.
Burdick,
Yes.
Langen,
Yes. Motion passes.
Motion to approve public event packets for Edgerton Library. Summary events, you know what, we approved one. There was only
one, yeah.
Okay, thank you. I'm agreeing this. Which is for July 18th, 2023, and waiving all fees.
I'll second.
Motion is second for the event packet for the library. Any discussion?
That is, what day of the week is that? Is that the weekend or during the week?
It's
It's a Tuesday.
Sounds like that, but it's.
No, it's
No,
right
it's
after.
not.
I was just looking it up. It's right after. It's Tuesday after.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah, that'd be a hula hoop event. It would be kind of fun there.
Anyone else? Roll call.
Andy Davis,
Yes.
Shaw,
Yes.
Paul Davis.
Yes.
Burdick,
Yes.
Langen,
Yes.
Motion passes.
And motion to rescind our previous motion for change of agent for Quick Trip.
I'll second.
Motion to rescind the motion from the previous agent change. Any discussion? Hearing none, roll call.
Andy Davis,
Yes.
Shaw,
Yes.
Paul Davis,
Yes.
Burdick,
Yes.
Langen,
Yes.
Motion passes.
And that's it for finance.
Thank you. Fire district.
Yeah, fire district, we have our monthly fire district meeting, board meeting this Thursday, the 11th at 6 o'clock. And it's our first meeting with as an integrated group, so we'll need a bigger table and looking forward to that. Chief?
So you have a copy of the report. January obviously is still as a 5 municipality entity. This does not include any of the new entities coming in. Probably be a little bit thicker report when it comes to next month. 87 calls for the month, so kind of an average month. A lot of that was temperature related. I think we all lived through a pretty rough month. City of Edgerton response times, 4 minutes, 25 seconds. So stay within that 5-minute boundary there. Kind of skip through the other stuff. You see down under the personnel, you're starting to see a lot of what was going on, getting ready for the integration. The top two are a couple of the most important. Chief Parker and Chief Lucas both came over from the Milton organization. They actually started with us on January 1st and helped us get through the integration. So both of them are on board. Kind of some normal stuff going on in the middle there, but I'll go all the way down to the bottom under future because it'll be listed officially as February. 29 of the existing Milton Fire Department employees had expressed an interest in coming over as part of the integration. 24 of them are on board. 5 of them are still in the background process. So actually pretty good numbers. We were very pleased with that. I'll just make a side.
Out of how many? 29 out of how many?
44. Yeah, so 66% had actually expressed an interest. We've got 55% of them on board. And there were some people that had 0 levels of activity. I just want to be respectful. There were some people on their payroll that, probably, they hadn't been there in months or in some cases a long time. Obviously, they didn't come over. We didn't expect them to come over. We're actually pretty pleased. The numbers are more than what we were thinking probably come over. So I'll just make a comment activity wise in the, what are we up to, 6 days now of February. We're averaging about 5 to 6 calls a day. So pretty much double what we were doing. We were running in the 3 call per day for ourselves. We're now at 5 to 6. The thing that we were the most proud of, because there's always a lot of fear as to, how's this going to work? Did we get this all right? Did we miss something? Right? There was last Thursday, we actually had 3 calls going simultaneously within the new district. 2 of them were multi-unit responses. 1 of them was an ambulance only. Every one of them, every truck got out the door, had what we needed. So we were very happy about that. Obviously nothing from a finance standpoint at this point. We are making a switch in the accounting system with the newer, larger organization. We're going with Civic Systems, which is the same company that Edgerton uses. And actually Milton uses them as well. So we're going to be using Civic Systems. They're going to be installing that probably in the latter part of this month, and we'll get everything moved over onto Civic Systems by March 1st. So that'll be very helpful. Good news is nothing significant from an incident standpoint, other than just it was cold and a lot of things that happen when it's cold. The new drone is in for use out over the lake or the ice, which is good. And then I know you've heard us talk about our cadet program, the high school program that we have. We got interest from Evansville High School and from Stoughton High School that they had people in their high schools that wanted into our cadet program. And so we actually worked that out, Blackhawk Technical College, along with all 3 school districts in the district. So we've got kids in the program. I think they're in about their 3rd week of it. And so that was kind of cool. We've been working very closely with Milton High School. They had kids that wanted to get into it, but if you're familiar with the difference between the 2 districts, they're on trimesters and Edgerton is on semesters. So trying to figure out how to get the Milton kids into this was square peg and round hole kind of thing, and we just couldn't figure it out. Our thought is by the time we get to next year, we'll probably run 2 programs. We'll run over here on the Edgerton side, and we'll just run an independent one on the Milton side. Because if there's kids out there that want to, we're going to bend over backwards to try to get them in. We are also working with Mercy Health, and the thought is, it's more than a thought, the paperwork's being worked on. We're going to take this from just a firefighter only cadet program and expand it into EMS. So the kids can get both Fire One and an EMS certification. So a lot of really cool things going on with that one. That was fun. Other than that, I'm going to take a couple days off.
Yeah, I think I said our meeting was Thursday. I think I said the 11th. The date is the 9th.
I was going to say that's whatever
Thursday
Thursday is.
because you're going to be gone the 11th. But
Oh, there we go. Yeah, I'll be here for Thursday night. I promise.
I have a real quick question now since February 1st with the integration. So Chief, will the numbers it'll just be one set of numbers. We're not going to break them out, are we, between East and West Division, but you will report it down below?
Yeah.
Because I think we determined that Milton and Edgerton were kind of around the same as far as number of calls met anyways.
The finances, and again, you guys are all very familiar with, the finances are firewall. There's a very hard firewall between the finances. We'll have to figure out how to show that in here. Run call numbers. Yeah, we'll probably it'll just double in size and all be listed. I think the only thing I haven't really thought through in my mind yet, do we still want to have an overall average for each of the subcomponents versus the total? That's pretty simple. It's just a math exercise. And I did forget to mention there's an additional township, Koshkonong Township, that actually has now contracted with us. Their board meeting is this Wednesday night, and they'll be signing a contract with the district to provide protection up into the town of Koshkonong as well. And the way we calculated that, again, we're very sensitive to the cross subsidization issue, right? That we don't create anything where somebody's getting advantage off of somebody else. We took our average cost per 100,000. They gave us the equalized value for the properties in the area that they wanted us to protect. We applied our $52.08 per 100,000 against that number. And that was the proposal to them, and they were very happy with it. So.
And how big of an area? I can't remember.
It's kind of, well, it's Tebow Point, Bingham's Point, and then kind of everything in the that's left, in between.
And it's not the same portion of Koshkonong that used to contract with the Milton district, or more?
It is more. It's about 2.5 to 3 times more than what was originally contracted. And they've also had some conversations with us, because on the Milton side, we'll have the two stations, east and west. When the east station, which is right along that Highway 26 corridor, when that gets built, they want to talk to us about protecting more of that area because it's going to be quicker for their citizens. So good conversations, so.
The only other thing I forgot to mention is that, I think Thursday night, we're gonna be talking about what the new name will be.
Ooh, good one.
Yeah, and so there's a process that, like everybody kind of, all the members threw out some thoughts and ideas, and the board did too, so not quite sure, but we're gonna discuss what it's gonna be Thursday night, so there will be a name change, don't know what it won't be Edgerton Fire Protection District, not sure what, maybe it will be.
So the district name doesn't change, right? The
Oh, that's
legal,
right.
Bill's getting right. The legal name of the district doesn't change. It'll be almost like a doing business as, the name of the department itself will be more reflective of the area, but it'll be, wholly owned entity of the Edgerton Fire Protection District, something like that.
I think you're right. DBA is the right way to look at it.
Yeah. There were 37 original suggestions, which was pretty cool. We were actually kind of surprised at that number. The board, we got it narrowed down to 5. And this is basically what the weatherman does every night when I come out at 10 o'clock. It's the teaser about, the full forecast a little later. The final voting on the 5, there is a very clear winner, got 54% of all of the votes. And then the other 4 made up the balance. So it's pretty clear.
So we can't tell you what it is because we don't know yet. We don't know what it is either, so,
That was the teaser.
yeah.
Just out of, as a note, when you're doing your report, you're saying when you integrate the numbers here, we're gonna have a tough time telling SPLY, when we're looking at this, if we've got the integrate, what you call it year over year. I call it same period last year. The difference from our district, from last year, we won't be able to tell it if you're integrating. You'll tell it too, but we won't be able to tell just Edger now.
Yeah, well, so down below where it's by municipality, you do have the number of calls by municipality by month. So as an example, Edgerton had 49 calls in the month of January. We'll continue to do that by municipality.
So
Yeah, That's actually very important to me, right? You need to know how you're doing against yourself. You could probably care less about town of Lima, right? So yeah, we're gonna continue to make sure that this is valuable to you as an individual municipality. And if something goes away that was really helpful to you, just let me know and we'll figure out how to get it back in there.
Or if you guys want to see something in addition to this.
But yeah, I agree with you, Jim. We want to make sure we've got the municipal numbers so you can look, in terms of how you're doing.
For financials, we know, nice to know where we're sitting.
Yeah, those will be
Yeah. Okay, thanks.
Yep. Thank you guys very much.
That's it. Thanks, Chief.
Thank you. Parks and Rec.
And yes, that I take this one. Parks and Recreation Committee met last Monday, and it's the first time that the committee officially met and looked at the comprehensive outdoor recreation plan that Van Wall Associates has been working on over the winter. We had copies of it, it's all in advance, look at all the input and all the charts available, but a really interesting and as the name says, comprehensive plan, in that it's pretty makes a lot of broad recommendations, which is intentional because that helps with it lists just anything that could potentially happen or be improved at all of our parks over the length of the plan, which is good for grant writing opportunities that we're kind of our hands are tied if something's not in the plan, so it's better to just throw it all in the plan, because in a couple of years, maybe, a different funding source pops up and we'll be glad that, that was listed in the plan. So gave recommendations for all the plans. The committee talked about, we looked at growth, projections for the city, how much parkland we currently provide per 1,000 residents versus some of our neighboring communities, where we fall that way. We talked about the difference of, will we just continue to create smaller neighborhood plans, which will happen with growth anyway, or the committee really fell on the side of it's time to start looking at something bigger as well, that especially with organized sports, the trend is not to have a soccer field or a baseball field at every park in town, but to follow more of the complex layout. So that's something that the committee voted in favor of, and that's something that, we've gave direction to city staff, and that will come to council eventually for budgeting purposes, is starting the long process of looking at purchasing land for a sports complex. So that meaning it's gotta be, in the, I think like 15 to 20 acre size range, fairly flat if you want to play sports. So that marker's been put out as far as a future need when it comes to parks. In addition to just a laundry list of lots of needs at individual existing parks in town. Along those lines, during this same process with a consultant, because of the development happening atop Cherry and Robert Street, we got a first look at what an additional park could look like in the Lad Lane area. And looking at what they came back with, as you've all seen those maps, there's a lot of wetland there. There's the need for a large retention pond to handle what, the runoff that all of that development someday on that hillside will create. So when that's said and done, what's currently there potentially to negotiate with developers for another park really only provides enough space for a full-size soccer field and then some pavilion, maybe a skate park. Not a lot of additional space, and no parking is on that footprint of what a new park would look like in the Land Lane area. So that they worked on as well. What am I leaving out, Candy, about the big picture?
Just two quick things. One thing that I was surprised, because I don't know if I was surprised, but I thought it was quite interesting from what Manuel, the information they gave us. Edgerton is on the higher end as far as the number of acreage that we have dedicated to parks with respect to population. We're, we're not over, but we're more on the higher end, which is wonderful. And we said that we wanted to continue to maintain that. But I found that interesting because we're so squished, right? So that tells me it's how we have it laid out, how it's currently laid out for whatever reason, right? But with respect to number of acreage, we're right on the money with where we should be. So I found that interesting.
And we use that to project growth. So even if the status quo is fine today, in 20, 30 years with where Edgerton is expected to grow, we need to add X number of acres. So that we're looking at.
Correct. And a good turnout from the survey that was sent out. And then the only other thing is that we ask staff to do is to take a look at what it might incur time and cost to possibly build the shelter by the veterans park area, because the veterans has come forward with a nice donation that they said they'd like to contribute So that's the other thing, it's just kind of in the infancy stages of looking at possible costs.
Yeah, the public input was, I would say, great, not good. I mean, he said, the turn rate was higher than like some entire counties or some, or
Yeah,
communities, much larger than us, so.
right, which was excellent. And I think it's the whole gamut. I mean, you know, need for skate parks, need for pickleball courts, need for.
As you mentioned, those, I was there.
Yeah.
It was on every suggested plan of the part section of the plan was the skate park and the
And the
pickle.
pickleball,
A
right?
lot of responses from the town.
And to take on what Casey said about the, you know, developing some of these new parks to develop in these residential neighborhoods. It doesn't do anything for parking, right? So we get a lot of complaints of parking, no parking at Racetrack Park. Well, we're not gonna have parking at any neighborhood parks either, right? So we know that that's not a cure either, so gotta look at it as a big picture.
So it's not just a walk in the park, it's a walk to the park.
It's a walk to the park, or a skateboard to the park, or a, and I think we're gonna possibly meet again in March.
And yes, and we didn't have significant edits to the plan. We didn't require another working meeting, so to speak. It's likely the Parks Committee will sign off on the plan at its next meeting in March.
Yeah, Vanwell did a good job on it, with a lot of time and energy and.
And there's, there's a lot there, so there's a lot for us in the Parks Committee to work on in the budget for, and we had it said at the meeting, like, just because something's in the plan doesn't mean it's going to happen, but there's a lot there to work with. And we also just covered like some other normal, like got an idea of what the netting that we budgeted for in the last budget will look like at Racetrack, and talked, staffs indicated that they would look into a camera at the pavilion along Swift Street in Central Park. Because we did have a discussion about safety and issues at Central Park, which is one of the things that came up pretty loudly in the survey.
Thank you.
Personnel met February 1st, and one of the things we covered, we discussed at finance, which was the approval of the assistant aquatic director at $20 per hour. They have, and staff has already started the application process, put the job posting out. I've seen it a couple different places, so closes the 13th, and we'll start the process of interviewing, and hopefully we'll have somebody in place before school starts. Or opens. Yeah. The only other thing was personnel, was we discussed the forestry intern position. We have a $5,000 grant, correct? And it's a matching grant. But the thought is to hire an intern at a wage of $18 to $20 per hour, not to exceed, I forget how many hours that was.
40,
Or 80, yeah. So this is absolutely a great opportunity with the grant to hire an intern, and you think that might be able to do it. That was it for just now.
Thank you. Next, to consider second reading and adoption of the city of Edgerton ordinance 23-01 regulation of animals.
I'll make a motion for the second reading and adoption of the city of Edgerton ordinance 23-01 regulation of animals.
I'll second.
Is there any discussion?
And I don't know about everybody else, but I got everything calls from people, or everything from, what are you trying to do to thank you? I mean, all around over the map. But I did get one that was, I wanted a little clarification on if we could. Page 17, 4, keeping of livestock, rabbits and fowls. What rabbits? I was specifically questioned on rabbits by 4-H parents saying rabbits got to be kept in a house. It says residential structure. Is that a rabbit's residence or is that? I didn't know. It says 3 rabbits, no more than 3 rabbits in a residential building. I'm like, holy cow, they don't want rabbits in a house. Obviously, right? Am I reading something wrong?
That is what it says.
That's what it's, but yeah, but it says except for, as in 22, chapter 22, which is zoning, which doesn't cover rabbits as far as,
Yeah,
but we mean, huh?
it does, but it doesn't allow for them, it doesn't allow for them, but it does cover them,
Well, yeah, right, but it doesn't allow for me,
not in a residential district, correct?
right?
They're just by the zoning district.
So these guys, kids that are raising rabbits for 4-H are doing it illegally?
Is it, let's ask it a different way. Is an outdoor hutch?
Well, that's what am I getting to?
Yes.
They want to have outdoor hutches
We
on their
have
property.
columns today too.
Oh, you did too.
Yes, so my interpretation of what is written here, which is language from the existing ordinance, is that the rabbits are to be inside, that all animals, all of these animals listed here, mules, donkeys, for those of you who aren't, have an ordinance, party, cows, pigs, goats, you can't have, including rabbits, except you can have 3 rabbits if they're inside your house.
Yeah.
So if you don't like that, then this would be a time to change that.
That's kind of what I'm looking at, guys. I wouldn't want them in my house if my kids got.
Hold on,
rabbits.
I have rabbits.
You wanna have some rabbits.
And they're in the garage in the summer, and they're small, they're in the basement, a very old basement in the winter. But, and we talked about the number of rabbits once. Aren't we still going to do cleanup? Could we address this in the big cleanup?
Application?
Yeah.
Certainly, we would need some direction though as to what you want. In order for us to do that, we probably as a staff wouldn't necessarily start changing those numbers without having a conversation with you. So I don't recall if there were any, to this chapter, if there were any specific things in the whole codification process that would have changed this. I don't think there are, we propose anything. So this would be a time, second reading, Bill, I don't know how far can we go? You're gonna keep us in line?
I was gonna say, this is really a cleanup ordinance. I mean, we were changing scriveners things, board, council, I mean, it really kind of minor changes, changing the number of rabbits, which apparently has some public interest, might be appropriate for a standalone discussion, so that you actually have some input on that. That's how I would approach it. I think now would not be the time that I would advocate change it. A, it's second, I mean, B, it's not really tied to the purpose of this change. And I think you are probably going to get some people that want to show up and voice their opinion. But it is existing language. But yeah, so the answer to your question, if they're doing that, other than 3, yeah, they're doing it.
Okay,
Whose agenda would you like that on?
that's,
It's not personnel.
well, I guess I'm back to, if it's just that, if it's that minor of a change and.
But is it? And is
Well,
it
if you're
only- is it
going from in
only
your house to a
rabbits?
hutch, I mean, come on.
Yeah, is it only rabbits? I mean,
Well, mine would be, and if anybody has a cow they want to keep in their, not in their house, then they can come back with that later, or whatever else we got. But I'm hockey or whatever it's list, yeah.
Having said that, we did have somebody come up and talk to us about pigs.
Yeah.
Well, I already checked with the chief, pigs is included, he said it right the way this is, that they aren't, you can't have them except as zoning.
Right, but I think if we open it up for public.
That was a zone, that was a zoning, right, that was zoning.
Yeah, right.
So would this have to come back as a zoning change to get, or no, or just a change to this, or I guess I thought this was the time to bring that up, but apparently not.
Not the second reading.
Not- yeah.
Well, well, I didn't know the last one.
You're too
First
late.
one either.
I think that's the issue.
it's that, and again, the intent behind these changes, if you scroll through them, they are really small. Animal shelter versus pond.
I have to interrupt, the changes that were made for the first reading, I didn't include all those, there's significant changes.
Oh, geez, yeah, this-
Regarding Vicious animals,
And
regarding,
These are the further cleanup.
correct, because I thought it would just get lost.
I wonder where the vicious one.
Yeah,
You know, all of those, just so that we made significant changes to the chapter, so they're not, these aren't.
Well, you are the body that makes these motions. I would suggest, to do with hearing that ducks might be coming up too, that you deal with that type of change as a separate standalone change, just have some consideration, some input. It's pretty normal to have limits on that. Where do you draw that limit? Is it at 5? I don't know. 10?
Well, I'm not talking the number, I'm just talking. You can't, it says in your residence. You can have more than 3, but they must be in your residence while you're in your garage, I guess that's included, but. I happen to moved into a house where the guy left the hutch in the South 40 in my place. They had rabbits in the hutch where they normally would, I would think. Right, not in your residence, in your house. A pet rabbit maybe, but not if you're raising them for full range. I don't, if you say later, then we'll do it later there. I'm listening to my attorney for probably the first time this year, but
I had
it's only February. It might happen again.
I had rabbits as a kid in the 80s in Edgerton, and I would all say I was way over 3. I don't know what the rules were then, but we were in our house, and it was way over 3.
Wonder how you can only have 3. That's-
Yeah, yeah.
It's
2
rabbits.
turned into 4.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, I mean, when we talked about cleanup or codification, like the number I looked at, I didn't
I want
think about the inside, outside, but I think there's a time outside of like the vicious dog cleanup that we could address rabbits.
I do too.
Yeah.
Because the whole intent here was because of the vicious dogs and the biting and the crack that started this.
Well, we did what we meant to with that, but as long as we were changing the ordinance, I thought now would be a time to change.
I agree, and frankly, I would change the residence as well, because I would put them in a hutch, and I think that makes some sense, but at some point you have to have a number, because, I mean, the intent.
Well, I don't mind the number at all.
The intent of goats and the other are noise and smell and that type of nuisance violation. Rabbits within 10 are pretty quiet and don't develop, don't generate that much odor or other things, but again, where the line is, I don't know.
Okay, so are we saying we don't want to change that to in a hutch? I don't care if it's 3 or not, but obviously they're gonna have more, but at least they want to
If
have
you want
one.
to change it so that they can have residential structure or a suitable outdoor hutch, I guess that would be perfectly acceptable, but does that truly get to the issue that you have? Because I think.
Gets to the first issue. They at least they're out of their
No
house.
one's
They're
brought me
legal
a
that way.
violation. Yeah.
Yeah, they're hardly, yeah. Who's gonna go count them? I mean, at least they're,
So-
if they see them out in their yard, they're gonna say that's not legal.
We have 3 readings, correct?
No.
Oh, this would be it, okay. So I was saying, if you make that change now, for the next one, another one's gonna come up with something else, and I'm not, I'm not saying we should or we shouldn't, I'm just saying, you're right, this is maybe outside this process that we address it.
We address the chickens.
Once again,
Yeah.
This is 3 or 4.
Yeah.
And that was and when we addressed the chickens, that was a public discussion, and we had a lot of input, and there was a lot of interest. I think it would probably be substantially similar, so I think at this time would be not the ideal time. But which committee I heard?
It's gonna come back.
Public Works,
Yeah, it's gonna come back anyway. So I'm gonna.
next
Alright.
agenda.
There you go. Geez, that rabbit's got more than your aquatic director's position.
Yeah, well, that's because I'm worried.
budget passed quicker than that. Okay, I'm done. Thank you.
Was there even a motion? and a
I
second?
think there was.
Yeah, you were. No, yeah, before I got intrigued with rabbits, I just want to say about this, I commend everyone that worked on it, a lot of work went into it, it's good. It's a need that was out there, there's an unfortunate thing that happened in the community. But it's kind of like the ordinance we did on parking in yards. This thing only really works if people call the offenses in. And then we have to follow up with enforcement, obviously, but it only works if people aren't afraid to complain about the dog that nearly attacks them or that does bite them. I had a constituent call who was all for this, and her dog got attacked and this and that. Did you call the police? No. I said, well, what good? With what we're trying to do here, that dog doesn't have its first strike against it. So it just occurred to me, like, we kind of, feel good that, but it really depends on people.
It does, but this also does have more. The enforcement has more teeth now.
Yeah.
Than it ever did before. It's not that that necessarily changes your point, but I think it's the first step that is needed
Oh, sure.
before
Yes.
that, but I agree with you, but this is the first step.
This allows.
It's all we can do,
Right.
but, but citizens and, law enforcement have the role to play as well.
There are other, it depends on the perception. I've had my dog has been attacked twice, and I did not call the police because one was the guy, we were out walking in the street, he had his dogs on a leash. And it was very early in the morning, like 5, and I think we surprised each other and the dogs jumped out of his hand. I didn't want to call the police on him. The other one was my neighbor who I don't have a very good relationship with all, but again, her dog broke and chewed through the collar. Her and I got into a pretty bad argument about it, but I didn't call the police. So it's like, sometimes people probably won't call the police if they think that it wasn't necessarily willful disregard. And so that kind of cuts down on the incident. That's 2 for me that I didn't think the police should be involved in. So that kind of cuts down on, you may not get the calls, you may not, because people might just find like, well, it really made me mad and I really think something should be done, but I don't know if I want to go as far as to call the police.
Right.
On my neighbor or somebody, so just my thoughts.
It was pointed out at the safety committee, when we had this to the people that were here, that when they asked, well, how do we, and I said, we're counting on you, and they answered, and the chief made sure, he said, make sure you call the non-emergency number, when you do. But we did stress that at the meeting, that we need their assistance with it. It's not like we've got a cop on every corner looking for running dogs, loose dogs or anything, so. Yeah, it's gonna be citizen driven and complaint driven and but it, as Tim says, we needed to get teeth in it, and now we have a first, a second, and whatnot, so, and that's what we didn't have before. So it's a really good. I can grab it. It did what we wanted, so.
Hey, is everybody done?
Anyways.
Burdick,
Yes.
Shaw,
Yes.
Paul Davis,
Yes.
Candy Davis,
Yes.
Langen,
Yes.
Motion passes. Mayor, all the person and staff reports. I don't have anything. Does anybody else here have
There's a
anything?
pancake breakfast on Sunday, isn't there?
Is there?
I think so, the community center for the Lions.
That's,
Yes.
what's up already, okay.
That's correct.
Okay.
Did anyone hear the one about the 2 rabbits crossing the? Okay.
Only 2?
Starts
Yeah,
is just.
They got off their leash, so yeah.
Hopefully everyone received a copy of the press releases and giving you some information regarding the trip that I made on behalf of the city to Washington DC to the Lead Lateral Summit. It was a really amazing trip, and we had an opportunity to talk with a lot of people who are connected with funding, including the Secretary of the Department of Natural Resources in Wisconsin. So we're hopeful that those connections will play out for us, and we'll have opportunities to get one more grant to finish the last 80 laterals that we have. So it's a great trip, and I really appreciate the opportunity to go on behalf of the city. It was a pretty amazing experience.
Was it that introduced you to the DNR secretary for the state?
Well, it was the person who is responsible for making the decision about what 4 states have been recognized as leaders. Wisconsin's one of them. And there will be 40 cities in those 4 states that will be recognized or put forth as accelerator cities. So the person that's in charge of getting those designations approved stood me in front of the DNR secretary saying, okay, we know who needs to be on the list. So it was very interesting to talk with all of those people that have a lot of power over a lot of money.
And who introduced you to her?
The guy in charge of the whole thing.
Took you a picture?
Yeah.
So,
Yeah, the
was-
senior.
Where
vice
were you?
president.
Oh, at the White House. And from what I understand, where was it going? Oh, you represented the smallest community that was there,
Yeah, we were. the
right?
only
It was
city
like
under
one of those,
10,000.
you know, at a wedding dance. Anybody who's been married 20 years, I stay on the floor, 30 years, and everybody walks away. Ramona was the last one standing, but the decreasing as far as population, and they were, from what I understand, extremely impressed.
Yeah, this is big
Tremendous.
cities that have, hundreds of thousands of these laterals. So, for Casey's the connection to the nonprofit that, kind of gets us in the room, but we as a city are, one of 10,000 are probably in the same position, but we're in the right state and we're a small city, and they want a representative of a small city who's almost done, who's done some of the work. So, we just got the opportunity to be the representative of all of those cities.
And at our last utilities meeting, we were talking about, oh, no, we'll try for a grant this year. We don't know if we're gonna get it, but we'll also try the next year. Maybe we have to wait 2 years to finish this off, but it sounds like we may not have to wait that 2 years, hopefully, if the grant money now comes in, because they're so adamant about moving forward, and helping us get over the line to say we're 100%. So that's awesome. It was well worth the trip, I would say.
Yeah, thanks for going.
Yep,
Thank
and
you
I heard,
for the opportunity.
I heard on the news that Biden's coming to town just to deliver your check.
Yes.
There you go.
Yeah, so
You gotta take them, go to Sweet Home, Wisconsin. There's a cute little restaurant called Sweet Home, Wisconsin.
Get a selfie. Yeah. Thanks, Ramona, you did good over there. You represented us well, I heard.
The anniversary. Happy anniversary. Anybody else? Slept here.
How many years? Dave?
29.
That one guy, same guy? Holy smokes. Well, I just.
I remember who was over here, I gotta be careful. Just kidding.
I'll move, we adjourn.
I'll second.
Thank you. All those in favor, say aye.
Aye.
We are adjourned.